All Things Data podcast. In the spirit of Daniel Kahneman, Peter Diamandis, and Google Moonshots, brings together leading data scientists, technologists, business model experts, and futurists to discuss how to utilize, harness, and deploy data science and data-driven strategies to enable digital transformation. The hosts are Dr. Manjeet Rege, Associate Professor of Data Science, and Dan Yarmala, Director of Business Development of IoT and Data Science. The podcast is produced by the Graduate Programs of Software of the University of St. Thomas in St. Paul, Minnesota.
And one of the things, Sreekar, you're trying to highlight is that when you're going through, you're implementing AI and you're determining its automation, it's actually going to be doubling up your workforce or more, correct, during this time that you're training and getting proficient in this skill set?
That is correct, yes. And actually you make a very good point that companies, when they invest in AI these days especially, I think there is a significant increase in the workforce in the beginning because you have to bring in new kinds of, process engineering. You need to bring a new layer of addition on top of your internal tools, so the tools actually can help these algorithms to learn from the experts. And I think this is the place where companies should not look at AI investment immediately as an ROI thing, where they are like, I invested X and I want to see Y as return. They should really be asking the question, where will my industry go in 5 years, 10 years, whatever the timeline, depending on the industry? They need to be saying, how much investment do I make in AI today? And how do I make that return later in the future years when our industry can process millions, if not billions, of these transactions way faster than their competition can do? And I think it's the investment in people and not worrying about an immediate ROI is what's going to make an AI company successful.
Well, we see that with Amazon, don't we? They put these bets down, and decades later, it's one of the most valuable companies. So that's a great point, because we often get like, when is the immediate impact when this is more strategic R&D in scope, and long term, this is paradigm shifts. But we know that the executives want a payback period, and that's tough to determine at this point with all the exponential technologies in place right now.
Yeah, go back to the PC revolution, right? PCs were very expensive in the 80s, especially when you wanted to be, if you had a floor that had 1,000 people that were working and doing all your paper billing, bringing 1,000 PCs would have been monumentally expensive. But over time, what really happened is the industry started to see that their workforce actually could put a lot of things aside, all of this mundane paperwork related tasks aside, and become more efficient and creative if they worked with those PCs. And that's really what's happening today I think that's exactly what is happening in the AI realm, where investment is needed before we start to see the actual returns from those algorithms.
We just spoke about increase in the workforce and having more people come on board if you go down the AI path. I just want to then also talk about a role that a data scientist plays and how that has evolved over the years, because over these past 10 years, there has been a lot of advancement, be it in terms of data storage, with the Hadoop file system, or the data processing over that distributed network. Or if you look at the advancement in AI recently with deep learning and things like that. So with these advancements that have been happening, do you think the role of a data scientist may become less important, or would that evolve into something else?
Manjeet, the easiest answer for this is it's a no. The reason I say that is, we are not at a stage where machine learning is a plug and play system. There is no concept of plug and play in AI revolution, mainly because of all the things we've been talking about, which is, identifying the processes that need automation, identifying the data sources that need to be worked with. Data sources are complex. Let's just take an industry that is about, let's say, 50 years old today. right? Something like auto insurance. In 50 years, the database technology has changed at least like 10 times over.
Mm-hmm.
And 50 years of data is a lot of interesting data from where they can learn very interesting things about the industry. Now, if I were to say to an insurance company, don't worry about data scientists, we will just give you tools that will do your machine learning, I think we are doing a disservice to that industry. Because data scientists plays a very important role of making sure that the right data enters into the right algorithms. Right things are being learned by the algorithms. And actually, if I would say, if there is one place where a lot of significant progress has been made in the recent decade, it is in the data munging, right? Which is really how do we churn all these different types of data and turn it into something that is meaningful for a machine learning algorithm to learn. And then especially in today's day and age where we are talking about deep learning, where neural networks are doing all of the hand holding for the machine learning, they need tons of data and data that is relatively clean. We can't just expect the algorithm to always learn from very noisy data. I mean, we are getting there. With lots of data, we will still be able to decipher the pattern out of it, but it will take longer if we don't have these data scientists ensuring that the pipeline of data that's going into the algorithms are really truly the ones that they should be seeing. If I could make a comparison here, I would say machine learning today is like a giant orchestra, right? Where the conductor of the orchestra is the data scientist. Because you got all these different algorithms that are all working with one another and they are all doing different things. Keeping them in sync, keeping them focused is truly what a data scientist does. And I think the role of the data scientist is only going to increase, if not become more important in the next few years.
You made a very interesting point about the fact that not all of the data is clean, right? Because for a fact, a lot of the data is not collected with the goal of performing analytics or applying machine learning later on. It is just collected, and then you have to go through a process of data cleaning and preparation, which can then be fed into maybe like a machine learning pipeline. In your experience, how important is that particular step of data cleaning and preparation? And roughly in terms of what proportion of time is spent on that?
That's an amazing question, Manjesh. A lot of our companies that we have worked with, they will start a data science project and they will allot a certain number of resources. And this would involve, DBAs, data scientists, visualization engineers in order to finally see what the outcome of this is. And only to realize that 60% of the project burns time in just getting the data to the algorithm. Not even training the algorithm, not modeling the algorithm. A lot of our projects end up seeing clean data is the problem that we are all facing. And actually this is an important need in the industry today, especially as I was saying, there are companies that are 50, 60 years old that are now trying to get into AI. Actually, I have a client who's 120 years old who's trying to get into AI. And they have a lot of data that is very old, but very valuable. How do you really enable this process of high-speed AI? The answer really is in the data stewardship and making sure that clean data is available to folks within the company. I mean, and I know this is going back in the 1990s and early 2000 discussions of metadata management and how do we do all of this clean data processes. And I know a lot of companies have burned millions of dollars doing that, but I'm not saying that's what we should focus on. We should really focus on how do we take all of this data, feed it through the new age AI way of processing them and turning them into meaningful recommendations or ranking algorithms that can really enable the company to go forward very fast.
That's an interesting point because Manjeet's a professor at the school that I went back to get a master's in data science. And one of the big takeaways out of my big data course was this and I called it a difficult orchestration. You got HDFS, Spark, Scala, R, Python, MongoDB, graph databases, etc. You're thinking to yourself, how is this going to work? And yet at the same time, the metadata management tools haven't really been adopted or ubiquitous throughout the industry. So for people that specialize in automation, let's say, we haven't seriously considered the automation processes internally as a data science flow, for example. And I find that kind of interesting because the languages are changing. It's getting so fast and the volume of data is moving so quickly, yet Manjeet, when I looked at that slide that you produced, I was like, well, who has that skill set? Nobody. So it's a team. And then this is a very hard team to find. And yet we have to analyze these things in order to scale, for the rest of the world. Sreekar, I don't know if, your thoughts on that when you walk into customers, in terms of skill sets, processes, it all must be everywhere, all over the map.
Yeah, no, you are absolutely right, Dan. And actually, you brought up a very interesting point, right, which is automation that we are all focused on. And we have been talking about automation a lot. And I think one of the critical things that we need to discuss here is AI, which is artificial intelligence, versus IA, which is intelligent automation. And the question you asked, Dan, which is how do we make sure that the data that all these companies have really flows into that intelligent automation pipeline, which is, and calling out this difference, right, which is IA is the process through which we achieve automation. AI is the backbone of making the IA possible. So it's kind of like I think it's one aiding the other, and data is the common factor between both of these things, data and process rather. So process, we first look at process. We look at what exactly causes friction within a pipeline. What causes the workforce to spend a lot of time with, let's say, one document, or what causes the folks to spend a lot of mundane time on tasks, and we can translate that into an automation task, and then bring in all these AI pieces to assist in that automation task. And data is what will feed those AI tasks by themselves. So it's kind of like one feeds the other, but to your point, now companies who are investing in cleaner data, who are going back to those, MDM processes and talking about how the clean data can make its way through their process chain, making sure everybody who touches the data in between are being properly logged. So that way we know when we plug an algorithm in there, it just needs to replace what the current process looks like and transform it in the same way. And that's when automation really kicks in. And AI kind of feeds into that automation.
This goes back to your point about it requiring more people because the process analysis internally for the information flow is very tedious, but crucial.
Absolutely. Just talking about that ROI, right, which is the C-suite always asks me when I talk about AI, they're all worried about, is this going to be done in 1 week? Is this going to be done in 1 month? Or will this take 1 year to get this thing done? And I constantly talk to companies about this ROI when it comes to AI. And what we're really seeing is that the more you invest in understanding your workforce, understanding all of these different processes that are affecting your workforce, the faster you can get to AI, the faster you can get to intelligent automation. Even RPA, for that matter of fact. When we all talk about RPA today, companies, they just brush it off saying like, oh, RPA is easy. I just go buy one tool, I plug it in, and now I'm RPA ready. I would disagree. I disagree because that is just the start of the pipeline. Now you need to go hire more people to come and look at your processes and see which ones can be done by RPA, which ones will require an IA, intelligent automation, which of that IA will require a lot of training of AI in order to do that. So in my experience, in KPMG's experience, what we have seen is a minimum of 4 to 8 months basically to deploy all these AI tools, applying all these technologies, and getting, that one use case, the critical use case, getting in there and showing the entire company that AI is possible within their organization. It is only after that the C-suite has to really start asking about how many other processes should we be automating. Because when you do that first one, you start to see all of the problems that you have in your supply chain of human capital. A lot of the businesses where humans are really involved, take, for example, call center, right? A contact center, not even a call center, a contact center is a great place for AI automation because 90% of the phone calls, they can be solved through some level of intelligent automation. But in order to get there, you do need to understand how your current workforce is handling these contacts from their customers. If you don't have that process in place, which is monitoring every step of the process that the human takes, it will be very hard to go to AI. It doesn't matter what tool you buy, what tool you deploy. The ROI question doesn't even come until you have figured out where you want to deploy these AI tools.
One of the things that often is referenced in literature is the culture clash between the IT and the OT, or subject matter experts and technology guys. We know that from a subject matter expertise in information technology management historically. But if we even go deep into data science, can you tell me what you believe are the biggest hurdles for companies that move into the AI generation? Manjeet, you might remember when you talked about big data in the course again, I'm referencing that, when you look at HDFS, there was somebody's probably good at a mapper, somebody's probably good at a reducer. We have to look at what, a data scientist doesn't do it all. So, Can you speak to that, Sreekar?
When we are now talking to all these companies that are moving into this AI generation, I think the biggest blockade they are seeing is that they have not accounted for the fact that data scientists are really not trained in the area of production. So data scientists they have been really good at modeling, working with large volumes of data, doing their due diligence in running the right experiments, bringing the right ideas to the table, and answering questions, storytelling to a large extent. But these are not software engineers or architects. These are actually mathematicians, statisticians, physicists to a large extent, even astrophysicists. These are the guys who are becoming data scientists today. So there is an distinction when it comes to, let's say, a data scientist writing a code versus a software engineer writing a code, because the two activities are very different. And I think one of the difficulties our industry or the companies that are moving to AI is finding is they do have to invest in both types of people. They need to invest in architects and software engineers who know how to deploy these algorithms to their products. And they do need to invest in data scientists who can do those modeling, who can run these algorithms. And I think where we are all headed as an industry is getting into the new generation of DevOps. I'm pretty sure you guys are familiar with the phrase, but development and operations is like just colliding head on, as you rightfully said, Dan. The OT and the IT are clashing, but we are now moving into the truly agile generation, right? Where we can say a data scientist can produce an algorithm, can produce a new experiment and a result in a few hours, and then a DevOps engineer can deploy that to a million customer production platform in a few minutes. We are nowhere close, but that is the holy grail of the new DevOps model that we are looking at.
So Sreekar, can you give specific examples where your clients have used AI? I know that you cannot really give out detailed information about your clients, but at least on a higher level, how they have used AI to create value.
That is an amazing question, Manjeet. We have looked at so many industries, and I've been talking about multiple industries through this conversation. Just to take a simple example, right? And this is public information, so I can talk about it too. The state of Delaware, I mean, you look at their Medicare and Medicaid system, they're having a lot of problem trying to prevent fraud, waste, and abuse in their Medicare system. And we are talking about billions of dollars walking out of very important part of our society. You know, people need Medicare and Medicaid help. These are older people, these are poor people, they need help. But fraud, waste, and abuse has eroded billions. And guess what? State of Delaware, unfortunately, can't hire more fraud, waste, abuse data analysts. They have 7 in their payroll. This is a problem, and this is a great place where AI is making a difference. Now, I don't have to take a sample of all the Medicare cases that are coming in. They can process every one of those things. And this has really become a monumental change in the way companies that don't have the manpower to prevent such things from happening can really focus on it. I have a client in Bay Area who's processing billions of transactions. Previously, they had very few people who could monitor these transactions and sample them to really look at what's going on. But algorithms are making it now possible to look at every one of the billion transactions that's going on there. Anti-money laundering, take that as an example. Banks have been struggling because money laundering happens not in millions of dollars, it happens in a million $10 transactions. It's so easy to hide it away when a company is doing a billion transactions a month. So these algorithms don't have to worry like humans to see if they can look at a million transactions. They can. And they're doing a big deal of change in the anti-money laundering forefront. I talked about contact center analytics. Now AI is able to use that multimodality to look at an email that's coming from a customer, look at the phone call the customer has made in the past month or so, and align the two things to say, hey, there is an underlying problem that this person is facing, which it has got nothing to do with the phone call or with this email, but it is something that is completely different. It could be an infrastructure problem that the industry is facing. These are things that are very, very different that a lot of people have not been able to figure out for a long time, but now algorithms are coming to their assistance and they are helping them out.
You know, Sreekar, one thing that I'd like you to touch upon with your broad client base is, you know, we're at a time where exponential technologies are passing by humanity's ability to consume these solutions. So we got these data-driven solutions. DevOps seems to take subject matter expertise and scientific approaches. But at the end of the day, an algorithm is a recommendation, right? Or it's data and the best practice. Do you coach your customers through like that recommendation is just information? The business has to act and integrate it into workflow, you know, to get, because that's again where Amazon wins, right? It's data and getting the package faster to you or delivering value. And I think that's lost sometimes. People think the information is, if I, like my experience in the industrial setting, like imagining a pre-retirement gentleman that's looking at industrial machines, and that if I give him 5 screens of data, he'll know more and he'll be better. But like the reality is he doesn't even have the competency to digest the information. So I'd love your comments there.
Right. And actually that's a great point you drew, correlating recommendations from Amazon to recommendations for our clients. When I talk to my clients, I make this big distinction, right? There is a product side of their company, which is facing all their customers, and there is the internal processes that are facing inward into the company. AI and machine learning can help both of them. So you take Amazon, for example, they are making recommendations to their customers on their front-end portal, which can, you know, there are billions of clicks and millions of people visiting, so they can make a lot of good recommendations. Turn the optics inside into the company. Why not use ML to improve their hiring pipeline? And machine learning make recommendations for who is the next best engineer that Amazon should hire. I mean, I shouldn't be giving more ideas here for hiring more people into one or two companies, but that's what I am recommending to a lot of our industry is use machine learning in your internal processes where you can actually get better recommendations from these algorithms. Can I improve my procurement by using machine learning? Can I improve my spend by using machine learning? It is possible. All of these are possible because at the end of the day, as you rightfully said, these are all industrial processes that have been looked at for a long time. Optimization has been applied on all of these things for a long time. But what has been missing is this big data lens, which is to say, now, while I'm optimizing my hiring process, I can bring my information from so many different channels that affects my product, that affects the health of the company, that affects my, people's work-life balance, and I can put all of them into my algorithm, and the algorithm makes a recommendation. That is what is making AI revolution so interesting, because it's inward and outward facing at the same time.
We're almost running out of time. So let me ask you one last question, which has been in the news lately for some time now. In your opinion, do you think AI is truly capable of replacing the entire workforce?
I'm not a soothsayer, but I will give an opinion that we have figured out within the last, I would say, 2 decades of looking at how things are changing around us. Any technology revolution that happens is going to displace workforce. And we have seen that with every technology revolution, workforce gets displaced. But you know what? It creates a lot more opportunities. And those opportunities will definitely move people from one corridor of employment to a completely different corridor of employment, probably even a new corridor of career altogether. But I think this after fact of innovation that has been in our society for a very long time. And as long as the innovation is a good innovation, I think everyone will benefit from an innovation like AI that is happening around us. And if you go back in centuries, when printing press first came in, it's very interesting. Actually, people said, "Oh my God, printing press is gonna kill creativity," because at that time the workforce was really focused on calligraphy. People were learning how to make hundreds of copies of the same book, and they would all be calligraphers. And people argued that, when you take this away and printing press will automate everything, you are now going to make people less literate. People are going to give up these intelligent workforce, and they're going to go do something else. But that's not what happened. Printing press actually enabled more people to become information savvy. And we are talking about 1700s when people did not have a lot of information in the first place. Printing press enabled that. And today, we are all benefiting from the fact that a technology revolution like that, 300 years later, is enabling a car that can move all by itself, can recognize pedestrians, can recognize bicycles. Autonomous car doesn't scare me as saying it's going to take away the jobs of people. It only excites me that it is going to bring a new, completely different marketplace where more people will be doing cooler things with autonomous vehicles. And that workforce, I think, will be a lot more enabled tomorrow than today.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. With these recent advancements in AI, it will create new opportunities, and those new opportunities might create new jobs. So the nature of your job might change. And like any other advancement, there is always a little bit of a hype as well. So, and then there's reality, right? So right now with AI, there is reality in terms of what is truly possible. And then there is this hype, which kind of, makes people believe that all jobs might be replaced, which is not at least possible in the next few years at least.
In the industrial side, we call it Industry 4.0. So the first industrial revolution, they say, was the binary loom, replacing so many textile workers. The second being the steam engine and horses, and then, manufacturing practices. So all these things, when we look in arrears, looks, pretty healthy and human evolution, when you look at it from afar.
Yeah, absolutely, Dan. I think that's a very valid point. I'm not a philosopher of sorts, but as we went from agricultural economy to an industrial economy, we called it information economy for some time. But I think we are almost entering an innovation economy where all companies in all forms of life should be innovating. Otherwise, they tend to have they might be displaced very quickly if they don't innovate. So we have kind of come into that innovation economy where, for the lack of better words, I think AI is kind of accelerating that constructive destruction process that capitalism hangs its hat on. You can see that from so many startups coming in, right? And they are pretty much affecting every walk of our life. Today there is an app for dog walking, and they're trying to make dog walking more efficient. Who would have thought before these revolutions came in? Well, granted, this is also on the backs of, mobile revolution, the revolution of LTE, high-speed internet everywhere. But all of these technology innovations are pushing us to now be in that innovative economy where people are asking the right questions and saying, how can I solve a particular human mundane task for a day better?
So, Sreekar, this was a really great conversation. I'm sure our listeners will get a lot of value out of this. We have talked about a number of things and how they apply to our daily lives as well as in the industry. So, we want to thank you for your time, and we'll keep in touch.
Thank you, Manjeet. Thank you, Dan, for both of your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.